Before the release of Avengers Endgame, casting rumors aplenty were flying around, getting fans all kinds of riled up and speculating. Ty Simpkins returning as Iron Man 3's Harley Keener? What could that mean? Emma Furman is in it? How could that factor into the plot? One casting announcement that got people talking quite a bit was 13 Reasons Why's Katherine Langford, who was cast in an unknown role. However, she wasn't in the final film, anywhere that we can see at least. So who the heck was she supposed to be? Well, in this video, we're going to discuss just that. So stay tuned, true believers. Despite her relatively short career, Katherine Langford has already proven that she has some serious acting chops. Between her roles in Netflix's 13 Reasons Why and 2018's Love, Simon, she's already showcased quite the acting range. So when she was cast in an unknown role in Avengers Endgame, fans knew that whatever character she was portraying, she was probably going to be bringing the feels. And so, the speculation began. Numerous different theories and ideas about who she could be playing came out. One of the most popular theories was that she was playing Kate Bishop, aka Hawkeye, the Young Avengers counterpart to the greatest marksman in the world. Why would anyone think this, you're probably wondering? Well, you gotta look at this casting announcement in the context of when it came out, and who else was cast at around that same time. This is when we learned that Ty Simpkins was returning to the MCU as Harley Keener, the young boy from Iron Man 3 who helped Tony Stark with his investigation into Extremis in that small Tennessee town during Act 2. This was also around the time that it was leaked that Emma Furman was going to be taking over for Abby Ryder-Fortson as Cassie Lang, specifically playing an older version of the character. Are you starting to get why people may have assumed that Langford was going to play Kate Bishop? All three of these actors are on the younger side and could easily slot into roles in a Young Avengers team. Keener, while in no way Nathaniel Richards, could have easily taken inspiration from his time helping Stark, building his own suit of armor to become Iron Lad, the younger version of Stark's Iron Man, obviously. And Lang in the comics followed in her father's footsteps to become Stature, a hero capable of changing her size at will, just like Papa Ant-Man. Add on to this the fact that Langford physically shares some similarities with the comic version of Kate Bishop, at least as much as anyone else in the MCU shares with their counterparts on the page, and it could easily seem like a fairly reasonable theory. Plus, I mean, come on, who wouldn't want to see a version of the Young Avengers make their way to the big screen? That would be amazing. However, Langford was not cast in the role of Kate Bishop, and the Young Avengers did not band together to help the original Avengers defeat Thanos, as admittedly awesome as that would have been to see. No, instead Langford had a much smaller, yet more impactful role in an earlier version of the film, Morgan Stark. Wait a second there, ScreenRant voice guy, you're probably saying right now. Morgan Stark is in Endgame, but she's played by like a real little kid. True, she is, and that kid, by the way, is named Lexi Rabe, just so you know. We first meet Morgan Stark early on in Endgame, when Captain America, Natasha Romanoff, and Scott Lang go to visit Stark at his lakeside home, hoping to convince him to help them out with their time travel plan. After discussing the idea for a little bit, though it's admittedly less of a discussion and more them trying to convince Stark it is even feasible, he ultimately turns them down. This is where we see Stark's relationship with his daughter for the first time, as this scene is followed up by shots of him reading her a bedtime story and the now infamous "Love You 3000" line that the internet has been memeing on in the most wholesome of ways. And some not so wholesome, but we aren't going to pay any attention to those. All I'm saying is that if you've been making those, you should probably feel ashamed of yourself. So yeah, Morgan Stark is in Endgame. In fact, she plays a pretty big role in the film when you really step back and think about it, serving as a sort of emotional linchpin for Tony Stark, driving him forward throughout all of the film's time travel shenanigans. In fact, when Stark agreed to help with the Avengers' plan to go back in time and retrieve the stones, he did so under the condition that nothing would jeopardize what he had found in the intervening years between Infinity War and Endgame, specifically his newfound family. So by that logic, you can figure that his daughter is easily the most important person to him, which makes Langford's role in the film that much more heartbreaking and makes it all that much more logical why she was cast at all. At the end of the film, Tony Stark got a hold of the Infinity Stones for himself, after fighting over them with Thanos and allowing the purple-skinned monster to think that he had them for himself. With a snap of his fingers, Stark dusted the Mad Titan and his entire army of followers, just as Thanos had once done to half the universe. This is where the scene with Langford would have come in. Remember way back in Infinity War when Thanos snapped and we saw him in the Soul Realm, talking briefly with a young Gamora before snapping back to his reality? No pun intended there. Well, in the original version of this scene in Endgame, Stark would have had a similar experience, only this time he would have spoken to an older version of his daughter Morgan, portrayed by Katherine Langford. But why an older version of Morgan? Why not just the 5-year-old girl that we had already seen? Well, we're not quite 100% sure on this, but we do have a theory, and it has to do with what is important to the person who snapped. See, in Infinity War, Thanos spoke with a younger version of Gamora, specifically the version of her that appeared like how she did when he first met her and took her under his wing. To him, she represented what he sacrificed, the past that was for a future that could now never be. When Stark snapped, he was going to see an older Morgan because it was also something that he gave up. In this case, a life with his daughter. But she stood not as something that couldn't be like Gamora did for Thanos, but a future that he had secured with his own sacrifice. Morgan would be able to live on to become an adult because her father stopped Thanos from destroying everything. And this scene would have allowed him the chance to see, in some small way, that which he had died for. In the deleted scene, Langford reportedly was the one who told Stark that he was able to rest, that everything would be okay without him standing guard as he had done for so many years. During the editing process of the film, however, it was decided that the scene just didn't flow as well as the directors and everybody had hoped. So reshoots were scheduled and the scene was ultimately scrapped, with Langford's lines reportedly reshaped and repurposed for Pepper Potts, who in the film got the final words with Stark as he took his last breath on the battlefield. So what exactly didn't work about the sequence? Well, when asked about the scene in question, the Russo brothers explained that the scene was meant to serve as a sort of bookend, bringing together the symbolism from Infinity War and further cement the sort of duality of Stark and Thanos, two sides of the same coin as it were. However, when the scene was shown to test audiences, most audience members were more confused by the moment than emotionally impacted, due in large part to the fact that the audience had never seen this adult version of Morgan ever before that moment. Talking about the testing process, Joe Russo said, quote, "We showed it to a test audience and it was really confusing for them. What we realized about it was we didn't feel an emotional association with the adult version of his daughter, so it wasn't resonating with us on an emotional level. After that, the cuts and reshoots occurred and the end of the film tested much more positively with audiences. So the question remains, will we ever see this deleted scene, perhaps as a Blu-ray extra? It is certainly possible. In fact, it's dang near probable given the amount of attention that the scene is getting all over the internet. But one has to wonder if we even really need to see it at all. Try to bear with me here for the second, I am just admittedly spitballing, but just stick around. I don't really think that anyone would argue that Stark's sacrifice in the final version of the film wasn't handled extremely well. If you didn't cry at that moment, you're either completely heartless, not someone who cries at films in general, or just completely cried out from the previous 2.5 hours or so. It flowed really well and served as a rather fitting end to the character's arc that had been running since 2008. Seeing a different version of that ending could be kinda cool, but I know that, at least personally, I might feel that the ending may have been cheapened by seeing what could have been. Then again, maybe it'll be better, in which case it's up to the fan editors to craft a version of the original ending. So get on it, you beautiful creative strangers, you. As for Langford and the MCU, there are also some rumors going around that Langford did make it on screen in the background of the diner scene where Cap, Romanoff, and Lang go to visit Bruce Banner to try to get him to help them with their time heist. Many fans have pointed out that she is in the back there outside the window next to their booth, but I sort of doubt it. It's kind of hard to tell. However, if she is there in the background, at least it's a nondescript enough role that she could easily be cast in another part in the franchise at some point down the road. So I guess fans' dreams of seeing her in the MCU are not completely dashed. Heck, maybe she'll end up playing Kate Bishop after all. You never know. We'll just have to wait and see if we'll ever get a chance to see her, firing off arrows or doing other Hawkeye-y stuff in the future. Would you like to see Katherine Langford's cut scene in Endgame? What role would you like to see her take up in the franchise now that she is seemingly free to take on another one? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below, and while you're down there, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to ScreenRant for more great content just like this. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you at the movies.